my name is Vincent Terry, and I'm the Director of Athletic Performance for Premier Athletic Development. What we're going to be talking about today is something called our Athletic Performance Index, which is essentially our formula of determining all of our athletes' levels of performance and helping them get to whatever level it is that they hope to compete at. Today, specifically, we're going to be speaking to playing at the collegiate level and becoming a college recruit and making sure that we are playing at the highest level that our ability allows. So we know that playing at the collegiate level is something that's super challenging, right? That only 7% of high school athletes actually have the ability to move on and play at the collegiate level. So what are we doing to set ourselves apart, right? We can't simply just be really good at our sport. There's gonna be a lot of things that we're going to need to do to set ourselves apart during the recruiting process, so that way we not only perform at a high level, but that way we can convince the recruiters that we should become a part of their program and compete at the highest level possible. When I started Premier Athletic Development, the name itself I knew wasn't just going to be about strength and conditioning, that there was gonna be more to athletic development than simply just running faster and lifting more weight. But instead, it's going to be this three-pillar approach where strength and conditioning is going to be pillar number one, but we also have the pillar of performance nutrition as well as mental performance. If all three of these things can work together, it's going to give ourselves the best chance to compete at the highest level. It's going to make us become the best version of ourselves, both in and out of competition. What these three pillars are then going to create is, again, that athletic performance index, where that's going to be our one number, our one athletic performance grade that is going to determine what level we'll have the ability to compete at. So when we're testing our athletes, we have 11 key performance indicators that we create a composite score out of, so that way athletes have that one grade to determine what their present level of performance is, and to make sure whatever level they hope to compete at, that athletic performance index number is going to align with their goals and their aspirations of what level they want to compete at. When we start looking at speed and power, these are some of the numbers that we have found that are going to allow athletes to do so. So we have a minimum threshold, and then we also have some elite numbers in here if we have athletes that really want to compete at the highest level. And then outside of just our speed and power numbers, we obviously have our strength and conditioning scores as well. So again, strength training is not always going to correlate to becoming a better athlete, but if we want to compete at a high level, we need to make sure that those strength numbers are at a specific level to make sure that we can express our sport-specific skills at the level in which our competition requires us to. And then one thing about conditioning is that I think oftentimes it gets misnomered that we don't need to condition, but conditioning is going to help us give us the work capacity to play at those high levels, on top of keeping us healthy and making sure that we also have the ability to recover from different high stress activities. So conditioning is definitely a piece of what we do to make sure that we are not limiting our athletes by not exposing them to these different conditioning scores. So again, with our full pillar, we want to make sure that we're not just leaning into any one area of these for our athletes. We want to make sure that they're getting strong and hitting these requisite levels to play at a high level, that they are powerful, and that they're not just strong, but they have the ability to actually express that strength that they can express when they're moving those heavier weights, and make sure that we're getting fast. So again, if we have a super strong athlete, we don't just want to lean into their strength. We want to make sure that they also have the ability to be fast, as well as making sure that we have all of our athletes have the ability to develop speed throughout their experience with us, whether they start at 10 or whether they start at 15, whatever level that they begin training with us. And then lastly is that conditioning piece, where we want to make sure that we are exposing our athletes to some higher heart rate activities, so that way they are not, again, having this capacity go to the wayside as they're developing the other capacities. And then when it comes to nutrition, we do have a performance and nutrition guide for our athletes that we call the Premier Nutrition Blueprint, that outlines a lot of these steps and these behaviors that allow athletes to get the most out of the nutrition. But if we were to sum it up, we want to make sure that our athletes are getting their carbohydrates to make sure that they have the fuel that they need to express high levels of power during their training and during their competition. Making sure they're getting enough carbohydrates is also going to make sure that they're recovering from those high intensity bouts, where they're not leaning on some of the other foods that they might be eating throughout the day. We've got to make sure that they're eating enough of those carbs. Our proteins are going to help build muscle. So I think protein gets a lot of talk right now, which is good, but we still find our athletes are under eating protein. We want to be somewhere around 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per body weight, and make sure that we're doing that consistently. Our fats are going to give us our long duration energy. They're also going to help, again, just kind of continue to make sure that we're keeping ourselves healthy, making sure that we're getting those fats from sources, things like avocados, different types of nut butters, versus only getting them from processed foods. And then lastly is our micronutrients, or our fruits and veggies. Make sure that our athletes are responsible enough to get these foods in our diet, even if they might not be the most exciting foods to continue to keep in our diet, that our athletes need to make sure that they're getting those micronutrients in, to make sure that they're keeping themselves healthy at the cellular level. All right, and lastly is the HARD operating system that we use for our athletes, where HARD stands for humility, accountability, respect, and discipline. If our athletes have the ability to express these things across their mental performance, they're going to be able to make sure they continue to focus on the controllables of their performance and continue to manage their emotions no matter what level they're playing at, no matter what the competition demands of them. So we have a lot of athletes that might come in and we talk about competitive anxiety, where they might feel like they can practice well, but as soon as the game happens, things change up for them a little bit. So we have these conversations with athletes about what allows them to kind of regulate those emotions and kind of find what their zone. Some athletes need to get hyped, some athletes need to calm down. So having that conversation on a daily basis to figure out what athletes need to hit that individualized zone, to make sure that their mental performance is not something that's limiting their physical performance. Controlling the controllables is a big thing that we discuss with our athletes, because no matter how high of a level we get them in our facility, if they focus on things outside of their control, it's only going to inhibit their performance. So anytime, again, we have these conversations with athletes, it always draws back to the things that they have the ability to control. So having the selective attention filter to make sure that it always draws them back to the things that they can control, their actionable behaviors, versus all of the things that they might be distracted by that are inhibiting their performance, and then allowing themselves to play at the highest level that their ability allows. The last thing we'll talk about today is this visualization and pre-performance routine. So as we just talked about, controlling the controllables is a big theme that we bring in our athletes, and a couple of ways that we can do that is to close our eyes and visualize ourselves being successful, practicing the behaviors that are required in order to perform at a high level, and what those behaviors look like, as well as maybe even visualizing ourselves not performing at that high level or being a little unsuccessful, and watching ourselves overcome that adversity. Not only seeing ourselves be successful, but understand what it takes when things don't go our way, what we need to do to reset. And then that's where we also discuss these pre-performance routines, where athletes have some type of resetting activity that they do, or something that they do consistently before it's time to perform, to again draw themselves back to center, focus on what they control, and go and execute at a high level. So again, what this does is it doesn't just look at an athlete's athletic abilities as their limiting factor to compete at a high level and to potentially get to that collegiate level, but we really wanted to have a full holistic approach at helping our athletes play at that level, and then ultimately contributing to that athletic performance index. What we constantly want to do for our athletes is never lean into one aspect of athletic performance, but continue to get them bigger, faster, stronger, continue to have the conversation around nutrition to make sure they're getting the most out of that, and then also have that conversation around mental performance to make sure that it's not just our athletic ability that allows us to play at a high level, but mentally we are prepared for that as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys took a little bit away from that athletic performance index, and you have a little bit better of an understanding of what this is going to mean for you, as well as what different requisite levels of athletic performance you're going to need to hit in order to play at the highest level. So thanks again for tuning in. Talk to you guys soon.